Welcome to the Game Changers Podcast, bringing you insights and influencers from the wide world of sports, business, and personal development. Here's your host, former professional athlete, author, speaker, and game changer himself, Rennie Curran. It's time to get your head in the game.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Game Changers Podcast. Once again, my name is Rennie Curran, and I'm so fired up. This is episode 17. For this week, I wanted to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, something that I truly believe in, something that I live for, something that I wake up every single morning doing. You call me a serial entrepreneur. I don't know what you want to call me. But yeah, that's my life. Since I've left football, the game that I love, and even before it ended for me, I started on my journey of entrepreneurship, and I'm going to talk more about that. But the reason why I wanted to talk about entrepreneurship is just because it's such a huge trend right now, something that so many people are talking about. So many people are releasing videos, courses, classes. Colleges are starting up programs about entrepreneurship. Anywhere you go, you'll see incubator spaces for startups. You got guys like Gary Vaynerchuk's of the world, Eric Thomas's, Brian Tracy's, Tony Robbins, so many people who are trying to deliver tips on entrepreneurship. And I really just wanted to share my perspective on it because, like I said, it's something that I live every single day. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm a personal development coach as well. So I'm working with business professionals, helping them if they want to become entrepreneurship or to increase their performance or build their personal brand. A lot of people that I've come across, have been in this place where they want to become entrepreneurs, but they're not really sure. They're scared to take that leap of faith. And I truly believe that in order to be a game changer, you have to have some type of control of your own destiny. So that means, you don't have to necessarily be an entrepreneur, but having some type of side hustle. If you're somebody who's working at 9 to 5, leveraging that and using that knowledge and using your everyday skills that you're using on the job to add value to others. And to me, that's essentially what entrepreneurship is. You can overcomplicate it as much as you want, but essentially it comes down to leveraging your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, your relationships, and leveraging that in order to add values to an individual or an organization. And what saddens me is a lot of people I come across, like I said, they want to become entrepreneurs, but we live in a society where you're taught to stay in school, of course, which is important. You're taught to make those grades, get that degree, and really just, get in that company with all the bells and whistles, with all the benefits, with the guaranteed insurance, with the guaranteed, paycheck. And a lot of people just kind of become another number. They never get to that place where they're truly living out and truly chasing after their dreams and fulfilling a calling. And don't get me wrong, I totally get it. I never will bash anybody who wants to go that corporate route, who wants to work that 9 to 5. If that's you, that's totally fine. Get it however you live. I ain't mad at you. You want to get that guaranteed paycheck? Cool. But for me, I just can't do it. I wake up every single day and I'm thinking about, man, how can I continue building my business? How can I add value to somebody else? How can I, take this new idea that's been planted in my heart and create it and use it in order to add value to somebody? That's what I live for. That's what I do each and every day, and it gets me fired up. And what I wanted to do is just kind of talk to you first about my journey of becoming an entrepreneur, and then secondly, as I always try to do, I want to give you 3 tips to just entrepreneurship. If you're somebody who's starting, if you're somebody who has an idea, but you still got that 9 to 5, or if you're somebody who's currently in it right now, who's just started, or who has been going at it for a couple of years now, who isn't at that high level where, you're Oprah. If you're Oprah on that Oprah level, I can't do nothing for you. But if you're somebody who's still trying to grow and still trying to become not only a successful entrepreneur, but somebody who has influence, then this show is definitely for you, because ultimately I feel like that's why we're all here. That's what we should all be striving for, is not to just build a successful business, not to just get a job that sounds good when we're at the cocktail party or when we're at whatever event and somebody asks us what we do. Just being able to say, oh, I do so and so, I'm the CEO of this, but really creating something that provides impact and really changes lives. I mean, that's why I got into entrepreneurship. It had a lot more to do with others than it had to do with me just putting something out into the atmosphere and just saying, hey, look what I accomplished, look what I made. And just getting into my story of how I got into entrepreneurship, it really started for me when my back was against the wall. And I had, as most of you all know, been drafted by the Tennessee Titans. Everything was going great. Life was good. I was able to do a lot of things for my family. And then a year and a half after, coach staff got fired. Found myself back home. And for like 8 straight months, I mean, imagine working for 8 straight months and waiting on an opportunity to come. And that's not saying 8 months of just sitting around, but 8 months of working as if you're on a job, but you don't have a job. That's basically what I was doing. Like once I became a free agent, I was just training 4 hours a day, backbreaking work, staying in tip-top shape, waiting on that phone call. And it really didn't come. I got cut around September of 2011, and I didn't get picked up again until like January, February by Tampa Bay. And even that, like you don't play again until, that April or March, whenever you leave out for OTAs. So for those months, I was just grinding. And I told myself, man, probably about 4 or 5 months in, that I couldn't just wait around for somebody to give me a call. I couldn't just wait for somebody to give me an opportunity. And that's when I decided to go into the lane of just entrepreneurship. And I started by really being real with myself, looking myself in the mirror, doing a self-evaluation, which I believe that everybody should do, and just asking myself, how can I, with the gifts, with the talents, with the experiences that I've attained so far, how can I provide value to others? How can I walk into a room? How can I walk into a company or have a conversation with somebody and ultimately lead them to being able to want to support my product or service? And so after I evaluated myself and listed down all of my gifts and talents, all the things that I feel like I could monetize, that's when I eventually got to where I decided on writing my first book. And that started me on a whole entire journey, because when you decide to write a book, which is what a lot of people don't know, is you're not just writing a book, you're essentially starting a business. And so when you get into starting that book, you have to go in, just like any business, you have to go in with a business plan. So you have to know how you're going to structure it as far as the book and the contents and what value it's going to deliver to people. You have to know also who you're going to use for distribution. Same thing as any product, because it has, once you create it, it has to have a lane for people to be able to purchase it. So whether that's your website, whether that's through the Amazon, through the Barnes and Nobles, through the different distributors, you have to know that beforehand. The next thing is marketing. You have to understand how you're going to market it, the messaging you want to give off from the cover of the book to the inside of the book. All those things matter to the back of the book. Most people don't even think about the back of the book, those who you have to endorse that book. There are so many things that I learned, though, throughout that whole entire process that made me a better businessman, from, like I said, creating the book to putting the entire business plan together to actually having the book and then taking it from having that physical copy to actually having to go out and sell it. I mean, that's one of the things that taught me sales like crazy, was just putting those books in my trunk. I mean, it was already on Amazon, it was already on Barnes and Nobles because I went through a publisher, but I knew that when it came down to it actually selling, it wasn't one of those things where you can just put it out there and, people are just going to buy it up like it's candy or something. Like, it's completely different. I tell people that all the time. The easiest part about becoming a author, or if you want to say an entrepreneur or whatever, is creating that business. For me, it was becoming that author. Like, that was the easy part, was writing the book. The hard part was actually getting people to say, okay, I hear what this dude is saying. Now let me pull out my wallet and make a purchase. Like that's the hardest thing, because once you do create that, for me, my book, once you create that business, now you step into this pool of so many options. You just become another business unless you're willing to do certain things like the marketing, like the personal branding, like building the relationships that really set you apart. And so for me, I had to understand that aspect of it. And that's something that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about early on is, they get this great idea. They're excited. They're fired up. They're telling the family. They're telling all their friends. They're posting on Facebook that they're starting this business or whatever. And they don't think about the long-term sustainability of that business and the things that you have to do day in and day out. And I see this a lot with entrepreneurs, with authors, with speakers, with those who, especially those who watch these big name individuals, like the Eric Thomases and like the Gary Vaynerchuks and all the other list of folks who are doing their thing. And they just think like it's going to happen overnight. They just think that, oh, I'm going to put this Facebook post out. I'm going to make this video. I'm going to, do this event, this launch event, and all of a sudden it's going to be all good. And they realize like you really have to be committed to it for the long haul. Like that, and that was one of the things that I learned very quickly. Like this just was not going to happen overnight. Even though I had a lot of success as an athlete, I had, played in front of so many fans and different people who knew my name, but it didn't even guarantee success whatsoever. Like I still have to every day, even now, even though I've had some success with my business and things are comfortable, like I still can never stop because, the minute that I stop, the minute that I quit creating, the minute that I become lax on the things that got me to this position, then shoot, I'll be back to ground zero and there'll be somebody else who will eventually take my spot. So a lot of what I learned about entrepreneurship and what has helped me to not only survive but thrive was from football. I learned a lot of just principles from playing linebacker, at University of Georgia, in the NFL, with the Titans, with the Buccaneers, in the CFL, the whole entire journey. I didn't understand a lot of why I went through what I went through, but now when I look back and I think about, the things that happened, the ups and the downs, the achievements and the disappointments, I realized it was about something so much bigger. And so with that being said, now that I've gone from, playing to now being a full-time entrepreneur, like I said, I built the business of being an author that eventually led me to becoming a speaker because I understood that I could not just, have this book and just tweet about it. Like I really had to get out there and connect with people, get in front of them. So I got out there, connected with schools, connected with businesses, associations, went to festivals. I mean, wherever I could go, I just put my name out there and really tried to connect with people. And so that created that platform for me to do speaking. And then as I grew in speaking, after I would do speaking engagements, there would be people who would come up to me and say, Rennie, how'd you write this book? I'm thinking about writing it. Rennie, how'd you get into public speaking? I get asked that about twice a week. 2 to 3 times a week. How'd you do this? How'd you create this? How'd you start this idea? I'm thinking about doing the same thing. And that's what led me to get into the private coaching and the things that I do now with personal development. And where it really started and where I first got the offer to do coaching, I was actually speaking at this company's conference. They had basically a professional development conference for the dealers who sold their products. And so I spoke there just about taking calculated risks, about overcoming adversity. And afterwards, one of the companies that work with their dealers on the business coaching side, Mainstream Leadership Network, they approached me and were like, hey, we would love for you to work with our clients. We would love for you to work with the dealers and be able to help them on their journey to overcome those obstacles that they face and to make sure that they have somebody to hold them accountable and that they have somebody to create strategic plans for them that lead them to success. And so that's how I kind of started. And they were like, in order to do this, in order to work with these clientele, you have to become certified. You have to get your certification as a coach. So that's what kind of led me down that lane of becoming a personal development coach. And I really see it as that holistic approach that combines the leadership, combines the personal branding, combines really everything, every tool that you need to become that successful entrepreneur, just person in life. I really think that in order to be successful in any area, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you have to have some form of constant personal development. You really have to be thinking about your continued education. You have to be thinking about your mental health. You have to be thinking about your spiritual health. You have to be thinking about just who you are as a person, your values, your mission, all those things, your vision, where you're headed ultimately, and what even success means for you. And I see so many people in life make that mistake where they're chasing that job, they're chasing that career, they're chasing those things that are fleeting, and ultimately, like, they forget about their health. Ultimately, they forget about their mental health. Ultimately, they forget about the relationships, and so they're not balanced. And so I believe that personal development is all about reaching that balance, or that place where you're operating as your optimal self, and trying to reach the fullest potential of who God created you to be. And so that's really my story as far as entrepreneurship goes. And I've been building it now for the past 5 years. Since 2013, really, when I released my book, is when I really got serious about entrepreneurship. And it wasn't just all about football, which is what I see a lot of guys do. And it's so easy to do, not only if you're an athlete, but just a person in general. You get that job, like I said, for us, you get drafted and you just get locked in, which part of it is you have to be locked in just to survive. You have to be locked in if you want to climb, if you want to continue to move forward with whatever it is that you're doing. But it's always important to be mindful of, how can I not necessarily have a plan B, but how can I leverage all these things that I'm building, all these skills that I'm attaining? How can I continue to leverage that? And I think for everybody, you should be really, really thinking about that. If you're, I don't care if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're in sales, always think about, okay, if my industry were to end tomorrow, if there was an app that came out that completely wiped my industry out, like, could I survive? Would I be able to still monetize, or understand how to monetize my skills? And what are the transferable skills that I have now that I've been doing this job for 2 years, for 3 years, for 6 years? And don't necessarily think about, the job that you're doing. Think about who you're becoming by doing that job. So that's kind of been my journey, just with entrepreneurship, and just the growth that has happened by me going after this dream has been just phenomenal. Every day that I wake up, number one, it challenges my faith. It challenges just my routine, my values, my mindset. Everything has to be right in order for me to do this. And so, with that being said, I want to give you just 3 tips from me that I feel like will help you, whether you're starting, whether you're already involved in some type of entrepreneurship, or whether you've been in it for 10 years. I feel like there's something here for everybody. The first tip that I have as far as being an entrepreneurship, being in entrepreneurship and developing that entrepreneurship mindset is, number one, you have to be comfortable with uncertainty. Have to be comfortable with uncertainty and be able to thrive in that and embrace that. That's one of the things that I see. One of the reasons why I feel like so many people, they want to start that business, they want to write that book, they want to get into speaking full time. And if you ask them today what they want to do 5 years from now, what do they see themselves? They'll tell you straight up, like, I see myself as an entrepreneur, traveling the world, doing this and that, meeting with people, up on a stage, creating. But a lot of times, what's the biggest thing holding them back? And if I'm talking to you right now, you'll completely understand this, but just the uncertainty factor. Like, they're not okay with not having that guaranteed paycheck. They're not okay with not, hearing that phone call from a client or from someone who's demanding something from them or expecting them to be somewhere. And if you're not okay with that, if you're not comfortable with that, then you're not going to last as an entrepreneur, because I'm here to tell you that, especially early on, before your business really gets rolling, you're going to have those days or those weeks or whatever it is where you're not always going to be hearing something. You're going to hear either no, or you're not going to hear nothing at all. And you still have to be able to have the faith, really, is what it comes down to. The faith and the mentality and the foresight to continue pushing forward in spite of whether people are recognizing you or not, in spite of whether that money's coming in or not, in spite of, whether people even understand your vision or your business or not. If you can make it through those tough times of uncertainty, if you can make it through those times where it seems dark and it seems like your business isn't making traction and like people are looking at you like, what are you doing? If you can make it through those times, then I'm telling you, you're going to be a successful entrepreneur ultimately. I don't know why I said successful entrepreneurship, but yeah, you talk to any entrepreneur who's doing it right now or who's big time, those who have 1 million followers now, those who are on your TV screens who are entrepreneurs, they're going to tell you the same exact story of what they had to go through to get to that point. And we don't realize a lot of time when we're starting in entrepreneur that the people who we watch who are ultra successful, that they've been doing it for years, 10, 20, 30 years. They've put in the work. They've paid their dues. They've gotten 1 million reps in. They've got the 10,000 hours in, and they are where they are because of the sacrifices. It's no coincidence. No coincidence at all. And they had to, I guarantee you, when you hear their story, they will tell you how they had to go through so many different trials, so many different challenges. They lost friends, lost family members, so many different things they had to give up, the cost, that they had to experience, that it wasn't easy. And so a lot of it has to do with just uncertainty, the things that are out of your control, the things that you can't see, where you have to believe and have eyes of faith. So that's my first tip, is be comfortable with uncertainty. The next tip that I have is teamwork. For every entrepreneur out there listening, like, you can only go so far without a team. And it reminds me of a story that happened not too long ago. I went to this conference for coaches, and one of the guests, it was in Gwinnett, and it was a ton of coaches, this coaching network, and they had a couple people there. One of the attendees there was the Falcons head coach. Another attendee there was a guy by the name of John Maxwell, who's a really big speaker in the leadership, the area of leadership and Christian leadership. A lot of different people know him. He's the guru, or the guy who's kind of started the whole leadership development in that Christian space. And there's so many other individuals, but what I remember most is that when I went in the event, I knew somebody who was part of the team that coordinated the entire event. And so they had me sit kind of near, I was sitting like maybe 2 rows back from John Maxwell. And with him, he had about like 5 or 6 people that were part of his team. And I just thought, wow, like I came there by myself. I have a really small team. I don't work with that many people. But when I saw them and I saw the things that they were doing, like, he literally had one person on his team that all their job was to do was to take notes of like everything. The speakers, like him, they were just building out the outline. So that was one thing he didn't have to do. And I just thought to myself, like, man, like, if I had somebody just to take notes for me alone, like, how much time, how much energy, like, would I be able to devote to other things? Like, and when I thought about him, I thought about so many other people, celebrities, politicians, speakers, so many others who are killing the game. It's not because they're the smartest in the world. It's not because they have some Superman like powers or anything. It's because of who they have behind them. It's because of the minds that they have around them. And I just truly believe that that's so important. That's something that I think about all the time. Who can I align myself with? Who can I partner with that can be an extension of me? That can be someone that where I don't even have to think about it. They're, two steps ahead of me, thinking of ways to improve the business, thinking of ways where we can all win, where we can all leverage each other. Teamwork to me is just everything. And as an entrepreneur, like I said, you can only go so far. You can only build so much. You can only make so much traction or so many calls a day. You can only sell so many products. Without that team. And one of the things that I see that a lot of entrepreneurs, authors, whoever it is, what they do is when they're launching that book, this is one thing I've seen. When they're launching that book, they might just reach out through social media or whatever medium they use and say, hey, if you want to be a part of my team, if you want to be part of my promotion team, you're more than welcome. And they'll get that call to action right there, recruiting people to basically be a volunteer on their team to help them promote whatever it is that they're coming out with. And that's something that I've done in the past as well, whether it's bringing on interns or making sure that I'm asking for volunteers or even my own family members. I don't sleep with my family members. If I need help, I reach out to them for sure, to be there. Like if I'm doing a speaking engagement, it could be something as small as having one of my family members or one of my friends there that's helping me sell the book. So I don't have to, after a speaking engagement, be trying to talk to people and then trying to take their money and then doing everything else. So teamwork can work in the smallest ways. Like you don't have to have a whole entire entourage. You don't have to have a whole entire group that you're putting on payroll to help you with little menial things. As an entrepreneur, you definitely have to just think about how can I operate with the most efficiency. And the last tip I have when it comes to entrepreneurship and having that entrepreneurship mindset and really thriving as an entrepreneur is adaptability. Adaptability. Like if I can't leave you with any other tip as an entrepreneur, is that you have to be adaptable. And that's to the good times, that's to the bad times. There's so many entrepreneurs out there who I've seen, who I've worked with in the past that fail because they're not able to adjust effectively. They might go into it and they have this one business idea. They might have this one theme of what they're trying to build. And they pay no attention to how the market responds to it. They pay no attention to the marketing and how that's being received. They pay no attention to the trends of the market, and they're not able to look at a situation or look at what their customers need and make adjustments. I mean, that simple tip alone can end up saving you. And when you look at so many companies out there right now that are failing, the Toys R Us of the world and many other retailers who are going down, is because they weren't able to quickly adjust and adapt with the times. A lot of them got comfortable because of the early success that they had. And so when I look at them, I really try to apply that to my life and my business and understand that just like as an athlete, for me, I can never get comfortable because every year guys are being drafted, guys are coming in and taking my spot. It's the same thing with business. It's the same thing as an entrepreneur. Like you have to be forward thinking. You have to be really adjusting your lens in terms of looking at the daily activities of what you're doing, your overall business model, your ideas, the products that you're coming out with, and seeing how can I make small adjustments? How can I further adapt to be able to serve my clients' needs? If you're not about that, if you're not trying to serve others, if you're not trying to solve a need or provide value, and your only goal is to just create this product that you think everybody's going to want because you like it or because it's in your heart, I'm telling you, you're not going to go very far. And so really, really focus on being adaptable. And when I think about companies that are adaptable, companies that make adjustments on the fly, you can't look any further than these social media platforms like a Facebook, like a Twitter. Just think about it. I mean, every time, it seems like almost every time you go on one of those platforms, they've made some adjustment, whether it's just a font or whether it's how the menu set up, or it's the interaction with that platform. I mean, these guys, there's no telling, like, if you were to go to their headquarters and sit in their meetings, just what type of schemes they have to get us to be locked in that much more. They are, when you talk about adaptable, I really believe look no further than that. I mean, they're always constantly looking for ways to grab your attention. I mean, I remember when social media first got big, like I think it was like 2004, 2005, like the MySpaces and that's when I first got my Facebook account. I was in high school, and I mean, to see where it's at now is it's just crazy. And so when I think about adaptability, I think about I think about Facebook, I think about Twitter, all those platforms, and like I said, I apply it to my life because it's so important that you're constantly adjusting or making adjustments. And I feel like it could be one little tweak for those of you who are listening right now, who your business, your idea hasn't fully taken off. Understand that you might just be one little small tweak away from being successful. You might be one relationship from being successful. You might just be operating in the wrong segment of your market. You might just need to change the niche that you're working in. You know, like for me, I originally started by, of course, wanting to target athletes, you know, because I was an athlete and I feel like I fully understood athletes. So when I wrote my book, I used a lot of the terminologies, I used a lot of experiences from the field. But one thing that saved me is I didn't just think about athletes. I thought about, okay, who else can benefit from this product? Who else faces challenges and adversity and hearing no? And that's when I realized, like, I have other markets that I can tap into. And that's when I decided to make those adjustments when I thought about that. And honestly, like, I've had a much better success rate reaching business professionals, reaching entrepreneurs, reaching those in completely different target markets than if I were to just try to reach athletes. Because number one, a lot of us just don't like to read books. I mean, you're going to find some guys that do. I don't mean to say that to generalize in any way, but more times than not, people who are trying to develop, people who are trying to grow are usually going to be in that business space. They're going to be your entrepreneurs, those who are high achievers in that space. And so once I saw that and understood it and listened, I put my ear down to the ground and listened to the market, I knew that I had to make adjustments in order to survive and in order to just be able to take care of myself. Because if I didn't, if I was stubborn and thinking like, oh, I'm writing this book or I'm doing this speaking, I'm only going to speak to teams, I'm only going to do this, it wouldn't have been very good. Like I slowly would have been going down to my own defeat. So yeah, that's my 3 tips for today. So get comfortable, number 1, with uncertainty. Number 2, remember teamwork. Top of my man, John Maxwell, with his team. If you want to check out a team, just check out that man. Like, look up his company, see the team that's behind him. He's even now creating other leaders doing amazing things. So yeah, teamwork. Last one, adaptability. And a challenge I have for you today as you're listening is to live out that entrepreneurial calling. I mean, a lot of us, you have nothing to lose. I know when I started with just an idea and a sheet of paper on my laptop, and I just started jotting down. I just started writing. I mean, I just started. I didn't know anything about writing a book. And in the back of my mind, I was like, all right, man, like, who's going to want to listen to what a football player has to say about, adversity? Who's going to want to read my book? And I remember one thing that made me kind of realize that I could do it. And it was simply me just going to a Barnes & Noble and walked in and I looked around and there were all these books by other authors. There were cookbooks, there were books about reptiles, there were children's books, there were books about presidents, there were books about the government, there were books about cars. And once I saw that, I just thought to myself, like, man, if all these people can do this, then why not me? Who's to say I can't write a book that's become successful, that impacts lives, that changes the way people perceive things? And once I had that experience, man, I was like, I'm going to do this because there's so many people who need to hear my story. There's so many people who need to benefit from this book. And so I encourage you, whether it's a book, whether it's speaking, whether it's creating a piece of clothing, whatever it is, like if it's in your heart, it's there for a reason. So really strive to create that, and whatever you have to do, just do it. Whether that's watching a million YouTube videos, reading a million books, meeting with people who are doing that exact same thing, and just getting bits and pieces of knowledge until you feel confident enough to take that step. But I'm telling you, it's like the best feeling in the world when you decide to, create something that's from your heart, that's not just about you, but it's about pouring into others. There's nothing more fulfilling. So that's my challenge for you today, is that if you do have that entrepreneurial calling, because it is a calling, don't get it twisted. This life is not for the faint of heart. It's not easy whatsoever. But, if it is your calling, and even if you are working on a job right now, you got the 9 to 5, I'm not saying just hop up tomorrow and quit your job and walk out. That's not what I'm saying at all. So don't say, oh, Rennie told me to quit my job and become an entrepreneur. Like, nah, not what I'm saying. Because when I started my entrepreneurship journey, like I said, I was still playing. I was still chasing my dream. So it started off as something I was doing on the side, and eventually I built it to the point where it was actually starting to take away opportunities, or football was starting to take away from opportunities that I had as an entrepreneur. And that's when I kind of started to know that it was time to move on, that it was time to transition. So that's my biggest challenge for you, man, is continue to build, whatever that dream it is. Start small. Start with just a sheet of paper, your laptop, start jotting down ideas, brainstorming, start meeting with people, start slowly building your team. And eventually, I'm telling you, it's going to come together, especially if it's what you're supposed to do, if it's your calling. You won't have to really worry about how things will work out. It's just going to fall in place. You're going to meet people who are going to offer you ideas, who are going to want to help you and aren't going to want anything from you but to see you succeed. And that's how you're going to know that you're on the right track. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for listening once again. It's another episode of the Game Changer Podcast. I'm excited. We're on episode 17 now. Episode 18 is going to be coming next week. I really want to talk about mindset in the next week. And, I know I talked about it a little bit here, but I want to go into more of like emotional intelligence and mental toughness, because that's one of the things that I'm doing, working with teams and businesses and whatnot. And I believe it's one of those things that sets you apart more than anything. You can have, I don't care what skill set you have or what degree you got or who you know, if you don't have that mindset right, then, things aren't going to work out as good as it should. So that's kind of what I want to talk about next week. But, thank you so much for tuning in again. And last but not least, always remember to be a game changer.